Being Real Summary Temperaments. We actually concluded the short study that we did on temperaments. I say short, it was a few weeks, but we went through and used the curriculum from I Said This, You Heard That. Information's on the 122 website under temperaments. The free videos are out there as well from them. We watched session 5 and 6, had some good discussion. These are two of the best videos, I think, in the series. They were all good, but these two were, just kind of putting it all together, applications, and just a good study for sure. One of the cool things about it is they're kind of doing the same thing that we do in Being Real, but they're recording themselves sitting, and it's scripted, to some extent, of course, but also not. And they're just kind of getting in the room and talking, and there's some really good questions, and they asked each other questions about how to better communicate with certain people with certain temperaments, and you could really see the genuine desire to get better at communicating with others and doing it in the right way, which is all based on scripture. The other thing is the workbook had quite a few scripture verses based on the temperament that you have, like inspirational, but also things that can connect with you. We didn't go through those. Those that have the workbook can see what those are. Workbook is great. Has a lot of information in it. We didn't go through every part of that. This was meant as like a group study with using the format and the videos, the free resources to be able to talk about it and to learn a lot about it in a short period of time. Further understanding of it and the ability to apply and how you can communicate better with your children and different things like that. They have books for that. And again, the study guides there. I have a couple of the other resources on the way just to see what they're about. Maybe even mention some of them on the temperaments page. I don't want to say like do a review of it, but I might throw another video out just to talk about those are the resources that are available after I take a look at them. But that's not something I normally do with Being Real. We're using free resources most of the time, but for this, it made a lot of sense. It was just a really good curriculum, spiritually based, and not that you have to have that part of it, but they do tie that back in. And the session 5 and 6 tied it in more than the other sessions, I would say, which was pretty cool. So anyway, we watched 5, had some discussion, went through, watched 6, had some more discussion, and not going to go through the questions that we asked and stuff, but you can go through, like, the number one thing is go watch those videos. They're free. They're out there under temperaments. The temperaments under Being Real, temperaments on 122.us. Check them out. They're really kind of connected. A lot of things were like, oh, that's definitely, yeah. So I would suggest doing that if you haven't already, or rewatch them. But how we summarize the overall learnings we did on temperaments. Here are the biggest takeaways. Kind of easy for me to say. Here are the biggest takeaways for the study that we had. We kind of went around the room and I asked each person like what their biggest takeaway from it was. And first person said temperaments are innate. Didn't know that. And that was a huge thing for everybody there. There are things that you can't change. There are a lot of things you can change about you, but a temperament is not something you can change. You can certainly do things to play in your strengths and manage your weaknesses, but it's still your temperament. Like you're not going to be a sanguine, or if you want to be a sanguine, like that's not going to happen. You can't become one of them. And one of the things that helps when you're dealing with somebody that may be difficult, not that ever happens, but understanding that maybe it is something they can't change. It's possible, depending on what you see, how they're acting, or whatever the case could be, or their initial response. maybe not overreact to the initial response, understand that may be just part of who they are, and they're not able to change it. I mentioned it, I don't know if I mentioned the other video, but I did mention it there that, I don't remember if it was this past meeting or not, but I do a lot of, I'm always trying to get better. I have a long way to go, but I mean, it's a purposeful thing for me to try to improve how I interact and all that kind of stuff. And this kind of helped me give myself some grace. So, because they're just, there are things that I know I don't want to be that way, but some things, like my initial reaction to stuff, I'm choleric, so might not be as nice initial response as I would like. Anyway, so they're innate. How to better use words and respond to others, or understand others' response, which is what we kind of talked about again. Another person said it's innate, and there's only 4, which is pretty crazy. You would think there'd be a lot more, but really, and it's not about fitting people in a box, but you can filter back to there are just, you might be a mix, which makes it hard, but there really aren't, it's not like there's 45 of them, there are 4. So that was interesting. Another person said listening to others and trying to understand them, based on the temperament. And this is just, let me just remind you, this is just a piece of your identity, your personality, but I'm going to say identity. And what we're really doing is a study on identity. This is one of the blocks. More on that in the future. But just again, the focus is on communicating better, understanding your weaknesses, playing in your strengths, understanding others better. That's really what it is, and that's what everybody kind of got out of it. And then there were multiple people, more than one person, we'll say it that way, kind of thought they had all of them at first. And we do technically kind of have, I mean, the whole concept behind, sure, now I'm not remembering, Hippocrates, and the initial 4, they were bodily fluid, and obviously you have those fluids in you, but certain ones are more than others. Anyway, but looking at it at first, you're like, oh, I'm a little bit of everything, and we did a pretty good job, actually. And it was surprising from the first session when we watched some videos that kind of explained it before we even got into the study, the video, and I said this, you heard that. I think that's right. We kind of, most of us nailed it or were close. But what we found out is, as you went on, you really started to get a much clearer picture. Even if you were a mix, you definitely leaned a certain way, and that wasn't readily apparent with the initial tests or when you started. And there were a lot of people that flipped. They had the right 2, but what they thought they were primarily, they were really the other. But they were still right in the fact that they were both. But that was an interesting thing as well. And more, as I kind of looked at it more, I'm a pretty even mix, but I definitely lean one way more than the other. In most cases, not all, but in most, and that became more clear the more we studied, the more we looked at, the more we saw how people reacted and responded, and how the people in the videos were talking, and you just it was just a really good way to walk through it. And some people be like, oh, I knew what I was the first time. It's just obvious. Not as obvious as we thought. But not as hard as we thought. Not as hard either, so just something we haven't focused on. So yeah, the clarity as you walk through. And there are a couple other things, but those were the main takeaways. And really, I've said this in there, and I might have said this in the other videos, but I didn't realize how important this was. I mean, this is a foundational piece of our identity. Some people would say personality, but we're going bigger. It's identity, which I think is a bigger topic. And we'll, as we move forward, now we're going to take a couple weeks off. It's summer. This is like 2 years of this. I'll be doing a 2-year summary video, I think. That's not important. But we're going to take a little bit of a break, and then we're going to go into other pieces of identity. And really, and I don't always have a vision. Usually we just do what everybody picks. And somebody picked this, which was great. But it really got me down this path of something that I've wanted to do with the group for a long time. And just people in general, and myself included, is just really understand identity and what makes up identity in every aspect. And that there's obviously a Christian part of it, a biblical part of it, how we were designed, and some people will be like, wow, that's not in Scripture, or whatever the case may be. I got news for you. Not everything's in Scripture. I mean, Paul in his writings are like, he even says, most of this stuff I want to talk to you face to face with. I'm not going to put in writing. We'll have that conversation when we get there, or we'll talk. I'm paraphrasing my brain. It's not clicking exactly what he says, so forgive me for that. But it even says that, and Paul's books are just letters to churches, and I guarantee they didn't include everything. So, but really, what's kind of neat about this is you get to see we said it, and I might have said it in other videos, but the grand design. Like, there's an entire design to this, and what actually ends up with us being who we are, and obviously some of that shifts and can change, and effort we put in. But we're gonna dig into all that stuff. We're going to look at all the different pieces that make us who we are, and obviously a big part of that is the design of God. So it might not say in Scripture to take a personality test, but we're going to, because it's still His design. Anyway, that's it for this summary video. Hopefully you get something out of it. Remember, 122.us, you can go to the Being Real Ministry. I think that's what it's called. Being Real. Might just say Being Real. And then under that, Temperaments, and you'll see all of the different resources that we use for this. The resources out there are free. You can buy the book. Again, it's not our book. It's somebody else's. But I would highly recommend that if you really want to dig into this more. And it's already helped me and my family. At least my relationship with my kids a little bit. I have a little bit better understanding of some stuff. So just, again, highly recommend. I'm going to do some more deep dive on my own. You can, or whatever you want to do, obviously. But anyway, thanks for watching. Keep being real.